Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon News Update for August 3rd, 2025. Let's start today with a personal experience from Stephen Fleming, written at timesandseasons.org. He says, throughout 2007, I had this nagging spiritual feeling, you need to understand the issue of homosexuality better than you do. I'd always seen myself as wanting to be kind to gay people and figured that such people didn't simply choose their orientation. I was very attracted to women, which wasn't a choice. And yet, prior to 2007, gay marriage/sex seemed unquestionably beyond the pale. So I figured the right answer was we should be good and kind to gay people, not demonize or ridicule them, but the trend at the time of pushing for legalizing gay marriage seemed problematic. So when the prompting kept coming, I kept thinking, what more do I need to understand? Don't I have the right answer? I used to go through the book reviews in the Mormon journals, and going through dialogue that year, I came across a review for In Quiet Desperation, a book published in 2004 by Deseret Book that focused on helping church members understand the struggles gay members were going through. I felt like I should buy it, and though I felt a bit uncomfortable doing so in the BYU bookstore, that's where I got it. It felt too painful to read the Matisse's story, the parents of the gay member who shot himself on the doorstep of the stake center. So I read Ty Mansfield's part instead. Reading Mansfield really hit me of what a struggle gay members were having, so much harder than me as a straight member. At this time, there was a push for Proposition 8 in California that the church strongly backed. We heard about it a lot at church, and by that summer, we were being encouraged to encourage other members to promote it, including our home teaching families. I worried I might be being swayed by the opinions of the world, and worried that my discomfort might be due to not wanting to be disliked by our more liberal friends. I felt that I couldn't just dodge this, but needed to figure out what to do. Again, I won't go into all the details, but I well remember the setting, sitting on a bale of hay while my kids and their friends went through some sort of pumpkin maze at the end of October. It was then where I felt I got the clear answer that God wanted me to vote no on Proposition 8, a prompting that came after a long process of following other promptings, study, pondering, and prayer. I really remember staring at the Proposition 8 question in the voting booth and thinking, what's it going to be, Steve? President Monson said vote yes, but the Spirit told me to vote no. I voted no. I really appreciate this account. However, this is not what I learned when I was an active member. In Alma 57, it says, Yea, and they did obey and observe to perform every word of command with exactness. Yea, and even according to their faith, it was done unto them. In the April 2018 General Conference, President Nelson said, Nothing opens the heavens quite like the combination of increased purity, exact obedience, earnest seeking, daily feasting on the words of Christ in the Book of Mormon, and regular time committed to temple and family history work. And D. Todd Christofferson used that quote in his message in the October General Conference of that same year. In the April 2009 General Conference, Elder Kevin W. Pearson said, If we desire more faith, we must be more obedient. When we teach our children by example or precept to be casual or situational in obeying God's commandments, we prevent them from receiving this vital spiritual gift. Faith requires an attitude of exact obedience, even in the small, simple things. If we go to My Life by Go-Go Goff, a very pro-LDS influencer, he says, the minute someone is claiming revelation that God is telling them that the prophet has fallen or is wrong, you can with 100% knowledge reject them as a false prophet, even if they claim to be an active member of the church. In the October 1999 General Conference, M. Russell Ballard taught, In the Lord's church there is no such thing as a loyal opposition. One is either for the kingdom of God and stands in defense of God's prophets and apostles, or one stands opposed. Let's see what else M. Russell Ballard said in the October 1999 General Conference. Quote, President Spencer W. Kimball reminded us that the prophets constantly cry out against that which is intolerable in the sight of the Lord, against pollution of mind, body, and our surroundings, against vulgarity, stealing, lying, pride, and blasphemy, against fornication, fornication, adultery, homosexuality, and all other abuses of the sacred power to create, against murder and all that is like unto it, against all manner of desecration." End quote. He then said later in that same talk, quote, "False prophets and false teachers are also those who attempt to change the God-given and scripturally based doctrines that protect the sanctity of marriage, the divine nature of the family, and the essential doctrine of personal morality. They advocate a redefinition of morality to justify fornication, adultery, and homosexual relationships. Some openly champion the legalization of so-called same-gender marriages to justify their rejection of God's immutable laws that protect the family. These false prophets and false teachers even attack the inspired proclamation on the family issued to the world in 1995 by the First Presidency and the 12 Apostles." End quote. According to that definition, Stephen Fleming is a false teacher, and this highlights one of the biggest problems in the church. Their teachings, their doctrines, their expectations are very binary. You are in or out, good or bad, following the prophet, or you are a false teacher. And yet, the leaders of the Mormon Church have to make space for nuanced members, such as Stephen, because otherwise they would lose a significant portion of the already dismal activity rate that they have. But when they allow nuanced members to remain in good standing, the more orthodox hardline members like Greg Mattson make videos complaining about members embracing LGBTQ activism. I know it's a difficult position for them to be in. However, the church also says, do what is right, let the consequence follow. If they lived by their own doctrine, they would not be focused on member numbers and tithe payers. They would be focused on love, and LGBTQIA+ people would be welcomed in full fellowship. Temples would have rainbow flags out front. Members who decide to be LGBTQ allies wouldn't have to feel conflicted about loving their fellow members, about supporting their queer children. The self-harm and unaliving rates among LGBTQ folks in the Mormon Church would plummet. Do what is right. Love is always the right thing to do. Now let's go to YouTube for a new channel that you might want to be aware of. The link will be in the show notes. The description says, "Welcome to the SX Mormon Therapist, where evidence-based therapy meets unfiltered truth." Hosted by Natasha Helfer, a licensed sex therapist excommunicated for telling the truth about bodies, pleasure, and healing. This channel is your place to unlearn shame and reconnect with yourself. With over 30 years of clinical experience, Natasha helps you heal from religious trauma, navigate mixed faith relationships, and embrace sex-positive living without guilt. Expect honest conversations, expert advice, and real tools to help you reclaim your sexuality, repair relationships, and redefine intimacy on your terms. Whether you're deconstructing high-demand religion or just want better sex, this is the space you didn't know you needed. Therapy-backed sex ed, shame and trauma recovery, intimacy, embodiment, and pleasure, uncensored real-life healing. Pleasure is not a sin. Subscribe for weekly episodes that say what others won't and help you feel whole again. I always like to point out resources that will help ex-Mormons navigate their post-Mormon journey, especially those that offer help that would usually elicit a cost that not everyone can afford. Now let's go to the Ex-Mormon subreddit and Floodlit for the following information. Mormon-owned KSL omits church's name from news on suspected child SA, despite citing a police affidavit stating that the suspect is an influential member of his LDS ward. KSL reported on the arrest of Ronald Charles Jones of West Jordan, Utah. The KSL article pulls information from a police probable cause affidavit, but doesn't mention the name of the church of which Jones is a member, despite the affidavit itself stating he is an influential member of his LDS ward and held several positions within the church. KSL also only mentions one prior S crime conviction, whereas the police affidavit and a search of Utah's online court records website reveals 2. Jones was convicted in 1990 and again in 1995 for solicitation. This isn't the first time Floodlit has made note of Utah media reports that appear to downplay or avoid mention of the Mormon Church in SA case reporting. On July 9th, 6-year-old Annie, pseudonym, was riding her bike home from a friend's house in West Jordan, Utah, when she saw former Mormon stake president, 3-time bishop, and twice convicted offender Ronald Charles Jones, 88, sitting on his front porch. According to a police affidavit obtained by Floodlit, Jones told investigators that children come to his house often where he provides them with candy. Annie told a Children's Justice Center interviewer she had visited Jones' home before to receive candy. Floodlit.org goes into detail about what happened after Annie entered Jones's home. I won't go into that detail here, but the link will be in the show notes. It then goes on to say, now Jones is facing charges including 2 counts of aggravated essay of a child, attempted aggravated essay of a child, and 2 counts of unlawful kissing. Ronald C. Jones, LDS Church Service Timeline. In 1990, a year after the Mormon Church made Jones director of its Military Relations Committee, he was charged with solicitation. Jones pled guilty within weeks, but a 1991 news article indicates he still held that church position. In 1995, Jones was convicted a second time of an identical charge. We're trying to find out whether the church knew about the convictions or took any action. The church made Jones a Palmyra, New York Temple presidency counselor and sealer beginning in 2006. We are trying to find a copy of Jones's 2018 autobiography, The Spiritual One, by Jones, which the Mormon Church is holding in its history library. As always, if anyone can help Floodlit, go to floodlit.org and reach out to them. Now let's go to the ex-Mormon subreddit for a post that contrasts 2 different photos. The first is the picture that the church shows of the first presidency and quorum of the 12 apostles, and the second is a photo of what those men actually look like today. The title says, "Why are these photos not updated? Published versus current." In the comments, someone says, "Why do they get so skinny when they become an apostle? Renlund's face has gotten really skinny since getting in." To which someone responded, "I heard that he said that Nelson told him to lose weight. No kidding, it was during a talk." And someone else responded by saying, "I had this confirmed to me by someone who personally knows Soares. Nelson told him to lose weight and he did. It was supposed to be faith promoting / obedience inspiring the way it was told. Sounded more like a lack of boundaries." I have personally wondered about this as well. If these men have appearance standards that they have to uphold when they get into the quorum of the 12 that go beyond wearing a suit and tie all the time. I was going to BYU, Idaho when Bednar was president and experienced a family home evening with him. He did appear a lot younger. About 6 months after he got into the quorum of the 12, when I was still totally active in believing, I started to wonder if he had a terminal diagnosis that he just wasn't telling people about. As a general rule, I do not like to bring up how people look, and definitely not in a diet culture or objectifying kind of way. But I do think the church does everything it can to preserve the young, shiny, we are God's mouthpiece appearance of these guys. Someone also commented on this post, "I'm surprised the last 2 are just first last, talking about their names, instead of first middle initial last or first initial middle last, which is a huge departure from the norm." That is an interesting observation. I wonder, too, why they did that. And last up today, let's finish with this great quote that says, "For those of you saying you want to spread love in this time, research is love, advocacy is love, having hard conversations is love. You want to spread love? Listen to those people in pain who have been systemically oppressed and say, I hear you, I believe in your humanity, and I will fight for it no matter what it takes. That is the most loving thing we can be." And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.